Aging Matters on BCTV is supported by the Berks County Area Agency on Aging.
Hello, and welcome to Aging Matters. This is a show that's provided by and sponsored by the Berks County Area Agency on Aging. My name is Ann Barlet, and I'm the Public Advocacy and Outreach Manager for the agency. Our show this evening, we have two community programs that we wanted to share with you all, and I have two guests to do so. My first guest is Christina Aponte, and she is the Foster Grandparent Program Manager. And to her left is Lisette Mendez, and she is the Ombudsman for the Berks County Area Agency on Aging. So welcome, Christine and Lisette. Thanks for being here this evening.
Thank you for having us.
What we're going to do is we're going to start with the Foster Grandparent Program and get a little bit of information about the program and what it entails and some of the volunteer time and or commitment. So what I am aware is, because many people knew that the Berks County Area Agency on Aging in the past was the oversight or the management or had received the grant to manage the program. So I did want to make sure you all understood that the Foster Grandparent Program is a federal grant that now is being held by Alvernia University. And the Foster Grandparent Program began in 1965, so it's been around a long time, and many people are quite familiar with it. I think that what I read from the brief brochure, I think is a good intro, is that the volunteer program is helping children develop academic and life skills, and that kind of puts it all in a nutshell. So we're going to be able to talk a little bit more about the program and how one can become a volunteer foster grandparent. So as I have mentioned, as a volunteer, Christine, let's narrow down, who would I be working with?
Well, as a volunteer, you'd be working with children, basically, so youth in our community. So you'd be working in different schools, and actually in our program, we consider anyone that's the age of 21 and under to be a children.
Oh, okay.
Or to
all
be
right.
a child.
So then I would be working with them, and what are the locations that I might be, as a foster grandparent, I guess, placed? Where would I be working? Where would I work with those children?
Okay, well, our volunteers are placed in different elementary schools. We have volunteers placed in Head Start programs. We have them placed in after-school programs and Olivet's Boys and Girls Clubs as well.
So you have daycare, did you say? Childcare?
Not daycare. We have elementary schools.
Elementary schools.
And we have Olivet's Boys and Girls Clubs.
And that's like after school.
Yep,
is that
after
correct?
school,
okay.
yeah.
And are there any weekends?
No.
Mostly everything is Monday through Friday then?
Yep.
And elementary schools, all righty. And so I have been I opened by saying it's a volunteer program, but I have also said, where might I be working? So I don't want to give a wrong information. So if you can tell me, truly, is it a volunteer or paid position working program? How does that work?
Well, it's volunteering, but you do get paid. So our volunteers actually receive a stipend of $2.65 an hour. So you are volunteering, you are working in the community, but you're still getting paid for it.
So it's not considered a job or work, but and I think that as I'm thinking about it for other purposes, that they can ask you questions about how that might affect someone on a limited income, and also whether they declare things like that, if that's really considered an income, because you just said it was a stipend. So it's not really considered like a working income that someone else might have, right?
No, so it wouldn't affect them at all.
Okay, good. So they're really volunteering with a small stipend and assisting children of all those ages with different tasks and activities, right? So where then, or what would I be doing if I were considering this? If I'm thinking in the community, hey, I've heard about the program. I wonder what I do with the kids, because you said a bunch of different settings.
Yeah.
So give me some ideas of some of the activities that I would be doing as a volunteer foster grandparent in each of those locations.
Okay.
Because I certainly wouldn't be doing some things in others, the same. So tell me what might be some of the tasks that I would be doing.
So for Head Start programs, it's a little bit different because the students are younger, but we're helping them I guess, be better prepared for when they move into kindergarten and when they move into the actual school setting. So you're helping them emotionally prepare for that as well. And then elementary schools, you'll be helping with writing or learning their letters, with literacy, just maybe memorization. Because if you keep in mind, sometimes in a classroom there's 30 students and there's only one teacher. And sometimes it's hard for that teacher to be able to connect to all the students and give them the extra help they may need. So that's where our volunteers come in. They're able to be there to give those students extra attentions. They could have smaller groups and teach them that way, or they could pull students one-on-one. We also have students in after-school programs, and they help them with homework help or activities or just ways to keep their mind going while they're outside of school. And then we also have we actually have one of our volunteers at a middle school as well, and she's actually she loves it there, and she's seen as a big someone that benefits the children there as well.
So let's talk about each of those settings. So let's go backwards. So what might I do in the middle school different? Like what, we said about academic life skills. Middle school, where are they in learning? What might I be helping them to learn?
You may be helping students that aren't learning as quick as other students.
Okay.
So you're able to have someone there to have an extra hand for, like, extra help for them, to help them with, it could be with their homework. Sometimes they can need have homework during study halls or different things, or while they're in the classroom as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it might be just reviewing and repeating and reworking the same situation, whatever. I don't know what that is, if it's math or if it's reading comprehension.
Yeah, it could be history sometimes.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. So if that's the middle school, we'll work backwards and go to elementary. In the elementary school, and that can be several different grades, right?
Yep.
So it could be anything from first to what, fourth, fifth?
To fifth, yeah.
Okay. So I would assume each of the students are at different levels in each of those grades. And I might be, again, you said working in groups or one-on-one, right?
Yeah.
So I could be working one-on-one with one individual, helping a specific area that they're having some issues with. And if it's a group, maybe what might they be doing as a group, as a small group that I'd be working with?
Well, if they all have a common thing that they're struggling with, they could work that way. Or sometimes sometimes the children like to help one another. So having the foster grandparent there to help them with, if there's one student that's having trouble with writing and another student's having trouble with memorizing their letters, sometimes like the tactics they use for one student could work for another, and then they also use those to help each other.
Okay. Okay, good. So, what might I do with the Head Start kids that are, as you said, prepping for kindergarten? So, what are we prepping them for? Are they learning shapes and colors, or sit down and see if we can sit for 2 seconds? I don't know. What are we doing in a Head Start program?
Well, yeah, they do focus on academic, but they also focus on the emotional part of it. So a lot of the students in Head Start programs sometimes have trouble transitioning from being with their parents all the time to not being with them. So that's why they have like another adult there that could also give them that attention.
So as a foster grandparent, I might be sitting with them, so they still feel some sort of connection.
Yeah,
Is
some
that
kind of connection.
something like that?
Yeah.
And then help them with being able to do the rest of the activities that they're going to be doing in that for that day.
Yep.
Okay, and then the after school. You said some homework.
Yeah. So I know there's a couple after school programs where they have a snack and they have an educational activity and they also have homework. So usually in the after school programs, their top priority is doing homework, because sometimes when students go home, they don't always have a safe place to do it, because they might have a lot of siblings or their parents might not be able to help them. So we have their volunteers there, and they help with making sure that the students complete their homework as a top priority, and then once they finish that, they move on to an educational activity, they get a snack, and they just learn about different things.
And it's good. Again, I think in any time that we can be there and support whatever each of the students are trying to achieve, it's only going to benefit all of us, right?
Yeah.
Themselves to succeed. So if I'm looking at doing this, is there specific training that might be provided to me? I don't just say, hey, okay, here I go.
Well, yeah, we have all our volunteers go through orientation, and after they complete the orientation hours, we also have mandatory monthly in-service meetings. So we have them come to Alvernia, and we teach them. We have usually a speaker comes in. So usually the speaker could be on health and wellness. They could teach on summer safety tips, on how to communicate with children, how to communicate with each other, how to build connections, just different topics. We've had so many speakers come in teaching them different things, so they're able to continue learning, and it's keeping their minds active and their minds moving, and it's keeping them moving, and they're also able to connect and share their stories with the rest of the volunteers as well.
And that's a good way for the volunteers to kind of share some of their, I think when we had it, it was a great time to share some of the success stories that they had when they connected with the students, and the consistency, because they're there pretty regularly. So what is the time commitment if I'm thinking about this? What my time frame in a day or a week in those 5 days? What's my time commitment to the program?
Well, every volunteer is different. So we have some volunteers that work every day, some that work Monday through Thursday, some that work 2 days a week, some that work 5 hours each day, some that work 2 hours each day, just kind of depending on what you're able to do.
Okay. All righty. And their locations all over Berks County as opposed to just the city?
Yeah,
right? They're all over Berks County?
Yep, all over Berks County. We mainly have ones in the city because that's where most of our volunteers reside. But if there's ever a volunteer that's interested in being in a different school district, we can always do that, because we have someone that's in the Daniel Boone School District as well, and we can always find those connections.
Because obviously I would assume I'd want to stay closer to my home than driving a long distance to do the volunteer work.
Yeah, but
usually.
the good thing about the driving part, we do have volunteers that do drive. We actually have someone that comes from Kutztown and drives to Reading, and we actually pay our volunteers. We reimburse them for the miles they drive as well.
Okay, so that's another, I guess, benefit, I would say, of the program. They get the stipend, but they also get some mileage reimbursement. Other benefits that they might get as a volunteer?
Yeah, they also, if you are someone that doesn't drive and you qualify for BART specialized transportation, we do cover the cost for that as well. And there actually are some volunteers that they get a bus pass from BARTA, so they can go to and from the school, and we pay for that as well. But not only just like the expense of it, we also see that there's an improvement in their health, because we actually have seen that 84% of our volunteers have told us that they feel like their health has improved because of being in the program. And then also we saw that 88% of our volunteers that previously reported a lack of companionship, they feel like that feeling decreases, and they don't feel as isolated or lonely anymore because of being in our program.
Well, it sounds very much probably the fact that both parties, the student and the foster grandparent, benefit from helping each other, really, getting together and doing the necessary task at hand. But it seems that they bond, they connect, and I think that they each benefit from having the other help each other.
Yeah, and it's actually some of the placements where they are. Sometimes the schools provide them with a meal too while they're working, so that's always nice.
Okay, alrighty. And I know that there are quick, in another minute, the guidelines quickly to become a foster grandparent. Is there a particular person or guideline that you're looking for?
Well, we want the volunteer to be a positive individual, because they're going to be a role model and a tutor to our students, and they have to be 55 or older to be in our program.
Okay.
They have to fall under the income requirements that we have. There's certain guidelines for that. They have to get their background check, so they get their PA criminal history check, their FBI clearances, so that's their fingerprintings, and then they get a child abuse clearance as well, and we pay for all of that.
Okay,
so they don't
I was going to say, so that
they can get expensive.
The program.
Yeah, so we pay for all of that for them, and then they also, like I said, we help them with transportation and stuff, and they also have to attend the mandatory in-service meetings.
Okay, and one last thing, so I'm sure that we've hopefully enticed some people to learn more about the program. I'm going to see if we can put up the contact information for folks that are interested in considering being a foster grandparent. Do you want to share that information with us, Christine? How can they contact you, right?
Yeah, so you can either call my office number, which is on the screen. If I don't answer, you can always leave me a message and I'll call you back. Just leave your number as well. And then also you can email me as well. Either one, I respond to both.
Okay, good. Well, thank you, Christine, for sharing some information about the Foster Grandparent Program. And I hope people out there will consider talking to Christine further about more details and set up for the Foster Grandparent and being a volunteer for the program. Lisette, your turn now. My second guest is Lisette Mendez, who is one ombudsman for the Berks County Area Agency on Aging. And I'm going to just kind of do another brief intro on the basics of the program. The Ombudsman program is a statewide program. It falls under the Pennsylvania Department of Aging's Long-Term Care Ombudsman program and oversight. Although I'm saying it's statewide in terms of in Pennsylvania, that's what we're going to talk about that. But the Ombudsman program, they have ombudsmen in other states throughout the United States. But for tonight, it's really just going to focus on the umbrella of the Pennsylvania Long-Term Care Ombudsman program. And on our the part of that ombudsman, the mission is to advocate for those who can't, support those who can, and ensure all long-term care consumers live with dignity and respect. So, I'm going to say, what does that mean, Lisette? So, that's the Ombudsman program's mission. What is an ombudsman? Why are we here? We're going to recruit for the Ombudsman program. What is an ombudsman?
Well, I want to say first and foremost that the word ombudsman is a Swedish word, which means citizen representative. And in our case, an ombudsman is someone who advocates for anyone that's in a long-term care facility, such as a personal care home, a skilled nursing facility, as well as an adult daily living center.
Okay. And let's go into, so what ombudsman, I think we probably even need to spell it. Ombudsman, ombudsman. And so what does an ombudsman do?
Well, we help residents that are in these types of long-term care facilities. We assist them with helping them with any issues that they're having currently in the facility. I should say first that we are resident directed.
Okay.
Which means that if a call came from a family member or someone other than the resident, we have to make sure that the resident is okay that we are involved. Once we are involved, which means that the resident says, I want you to help me with a concern. A concern could be call bell response. If you've ever visited someone in a skilled nursing facility, you hear those call bells or the light above the door. Most residents will complain that the call bell response is late. So what we do is when we've been contacted, we'll meet with that resident and say, okay, have you talked to anyone with regards to your concern? And if they say no, then we try to bridge that connection so that they know who in the facility to speak with. Now you have some residents, of course, that are concerned because of fear of retaliation. So we try to tread lightly and just make sure that they're okay with the next plan that we're going to do, which would be, would you like for me to speak on your behalf? And if they say yes, then we would discuss their concern with the appropriate individual in the facility.
I think sometimes, and why I can say this is being at the agency, we have gotten a lot of calls, and as an ombudsman supervisor, there's a wide range and a wide amount of different types of folks that call, and so some circumstances are such that the individual is not concerned about it when someone else is. So I think it's even the reverse. You might get phone calls from family members, but the residents also call themselves, right?
Yes.
And other concerned folks for that resident, and even the facilities have called to ask for some assistance by an ombudsman with a particular issue. And again, it can be a wide range of issues. And when you say to talk to the appropriate person, give me an example.
Well, an example would be, say, for instance, you're a resident at one of these facilities and your meal tray comes in and now the food is cold. I want to make sure that that resident understands that they need to speak with the dietary staff and not the maintenance man. Because what I hear is a resident will say, well, I spoke to an aide. And we know that a lot of times the aides are there to assist with, what we call their ADLs. And what happens is they go to the next resident and they forget to let the dietary person know, look, so-and-so in this room needs their meal reheated. So trying to educate that resident, of course, on who they need to speak with, but most importantly, empower them then to say, okay, this is my concern, and I like to say what it is.
Okay. And so in looking at, for encouraging folks to maybe want to call us about becoming a volunteer ombudsman, as somebody considering that, then what might a volunteer ombudsman, is there a difference between a volunteer and a staff ombudsman in terms of what a volunteer might do as an ombudsman?
Well, let me just say, with our volunteers, what's great is that they are our eyes and ears on the hours that we are not in the facility. So if an individual wanted to become a volunteer, we would work with your schedule, which means that, say, for instance, you had a full-time job and you could only visit the assigned facility in the evening. The difference between the volunteer and the staff is that, we work 8 to 5, whereas a volunteer would have access to that facility at any given time. The difference between a volunteer and a staff as well would be that most volunteers will report back to me with regards to the concern that they have found, and then if it becomes a case, then I would make it a case and follow through with the individual.
Okay. And so what kinds of activities, since we talked about the foster grandparent activities, what kind of activities would a volunteer ombudsman do in these facilities?
Outside of just visiting the facility, what we encourage the volunteer to do would be meet with residents that are attending resident council meetings. Once they have permission from the resident, then they can attend these monthly meetings that the residents handle and get together to express their concerns. And then they take the notes there, and then they return and report back to me, so I know what to look for when I'm out in the facility. Outside of that, they also assist with resident rights training, because we also train the residents about their rights, but we also train the staff as well. And
That residents have rights,
correct,
wherever they live in any of those long-term care facilities.
Yes.
And when you say facility, they visit the facility, what do I do if I'm a volunteer visiting the facility? What am I looking for, or what am I not looking for?
Well, I would say that a volunteer going into a facility, first and foremost, would meet with the residents. So you would walk into the facility, of course, let whomever's at the front door that you're a volunteer, and you would just walk around the facility, talk to residents, see how their quality of care is, see if they have any concerns with their meals, inform them about their rights, as well as inform them about the Ombudsman program. We have materials that we would provide the volunteer, so you're not just going in blinded, so that they can meet with these individuals, but also educate them and empower them the way I would go into a facility.
So when you said to educate them, you said about education for the volunteers. So like the foster grandparent, what kind of training would a volunteer ombudsman need or go through? Is there training, I guess I should say?
I would say if an individual is starting with the program, they would meet with me first. There's an orientation that they would have to complete, of course, some background checks as well. And before they could even get into a facility, I would like for them to shadow me so that they can see how I operate, but also let me shadow them to see if they're going to be a good fit for this program. A lot of times people say that, yes, I want to do this, I'm an advocate, but they do it for the wrong reasons. So when I shadow them, it allows me to understand if they're going to be a good fit. And then, of course, there's some online training that they can do at their convenience. And then there's also a monthly meeting that we schedule with the volunteers, or one-on-one with me and that individual.
So on that note, when you said to see if it fits and if it's something they're going to be able to do and like to do, is there a particular person's pre-qualifying experience or education that really qualifies them better or not?
I would say it's per the individual. honestly. An individual that may have a mother in a facility might have the empathy when dealing with someone that they're visiting, or someone that has been in a facility themselves because of rehab. What I've noticed is it's not just those 60 and over that are in nursing homes. You have some that are a lot younger. So having that experience could be a good factor, because then you can see it from both angles, as a resident once being in there for rehab, or as a volunteer. So for me, experience, of course, it would be having the time to do it.
Okay.
Because we want someone who's going to be dedicated. Okay. Someone that's going to be assigned to a facility and do their visits, but also someone that's going to have that empathy for the individuals that they're dealing with.
And I think it's good that the shadowing piece and kind of getting familiar with the different types of facilities. Maybe somebody feels better in this type of facility than this type.
That's correct.
And what about, and I like the idea that you mentioned that too, the Ombudsman advocates for any age resident. So even if there's it's not because we're aging, it's an older adult group that we are advocating for in a facility, it's anybody who is residing in that facility. Sure. We have basically 1 or 2 minutes yet. What would be that time commitment again for that individual who's considering being a volunteer ombudsman in, say, a week or a month's period of time? What might they need to give back?
Well, what I would call a perfect volunteer would be someone that can give at least 4 more hours per month.
4 or more, did you say? Okay.
4 or more. That means maybe you can get into a facility 4 times a month. Great. Maybe you're that type of volunteer that can do 2 visits with 2 hours. We try to work very closely with their schedule, knowing that if they have full-time jobs, that we just want them to be able to get in the facility at their convenience, but be dedicated.
And to be able to do the tasks that we need to have done to help the residents in those facilities. We really have run out of time. All I'm going to say is that if you want more information about the Volunteer Ombudsman Program, please call the Berks County Area Agency on Aging at 610-478-6500. You can ask for Lisette Mendez. She will be happy to give you all more in detail about the program and send you an application and other information, and to talk to you more about that. As well as I want to thank Christine Aponte as the Foster Grandparent Program Manager. You can contact her and get more information about that program as well. And so I want to thank Christine and Lisette for being our guests this evening, and hopefully we, in this new year of 2019, have encouraged folks to begin a new type of volunteering activity for themselves. Thanks for tuning in to Aging Matters. We'll see you next month.
Aging Matters on BCTV is supported by the Berks County Area Agency on Aging.